Bueno, mi gente. Alright guys, so one of the most common questions that I get is, well, what do you do for cooking? How do you cook? And here at my kitchen station is pretty much where I do most of my my cooking. I use really basic tools, and I try to keep things simple as possible. Lately, that's not really been a problem because funds have been low, so I kind of eat what I can. Luckily, the rancher's wife came by earlier today, and she dropped me off some beef cubes for stew meat, and I'll show you what one of the simple recipes that I actually make. So I try to save space and time for myself in prepping by chopping up my onions and keeping them in baggies. This saves a lot of space in the refrigerator, and it does save me a lot of time when it comes to prepping. I don't like to do that for my garlic. I like to chop my garlic up when I'm going to use it, which I've already done here. I kind of did that before I had the idea of making the video, so bear with me on that. For this particular dish, basically it's going to be sort of like a fried rice. I do like to make my rice in larger quantities. Again, save time, save fuel, and I'll store them in this container in the refrigerator. And this is more than enough for 2 to 3 meals, at least for myself. Your mileage may vary. You may eat more or less than I do. And what I'll do is I'll chop up the meat into little pieces like this. I've already done one of them actually before. Again, I had the idea to make the video, but we'll do one really quickly here. I know you got better things to do than to watch somebody just chop meat. It's not like you've never seen it before, you've never done it before. It's no different than what you do. I mean, I chop it up into small bits. My main goal, aside from, you know, making a tasty dish and not taking a lot of time, is to just is to be able to stretch it as much as I can. And by cutting it up into smaller pieces, you know, I still get the flavor of that meat in most of the bites, without using as much as I normally would have when I was in better circumstances. Alright, so you guys get the idea. Just chopping up the meat into small pieces, and once that's done, we'll take it over to the pan. Okay, so the next step is up in the pan. We got our oil nice and hot. Now, I know a lot of people start with sauteing the onions and the garlic. I don't. I like to put the beef in first. And part of the reason for that is the beef will release moisture, release some water. If I do the pan first with the onions and the garlic to get it seasoned with that taste before I put the beef in, once I do put the beef in and it does start releasing that water, it'll lose that flavor. And I'm not looking to do that. At least that's been my experience. This is the way I do it. Your mileage may vary. You might want to do it a different way. I like to try different things. This is what I found works best for me. You know, everybody's gonna die, but not everybody lives, right? The way I see it is I like to experiment. And this is when we'll start throwing in a little bit of seasoning. In my case, that's gonna be a little bit of sea salt. Why sea salt? That's the only salt I got right now. This particular beef is a bit fresher, so I don't get the amount of liquid release. So I'll go ahead and throw in some onions. We're going to start melding in together, getting that flavor mixed in there. Pardon me. Can't seem to shake this cough. Get our garlic mixed in there. Usually when I'm cooking, I got some music playing in the background. However, in part due to copyright considerations, and in part because I play it off on my phone and I'm using that to record, kind of not going to work for us. That smells great. I love the scent of that garlic coming off of that pan. I like using the cast iron because it holds that heat so well. Now this, although many people would consider it a little bit too early, this is where I actually like to add my bay leaf. That's kind of small for the amount that we have, so we'll throw in a little piece there. And get it to start releasing some of that flavor as well. I kind of keep the pan on high during this process. This is where I'll also, hey, where are you hiding? I'll add a packet of my sazongoya with culantro and achote. Now, it kind of clumps up a little bit when you keep it outdoors and it rains a lot, but it still does its job. I keep the packet, and there's still some in there, and a little bit later on I'll add a little bit of water and throw it into the mix. This is where all these flavors are starting to come together and absorb into each other now. Since this is meat with potatoes, I throw my potatoes in now. And again, this may be just in my mind, but I find that when I do it this way, they tend to pick up the flavors a little bit more. Wow. Now usually the meat is has let loose a little bit more liquid than this, and I have more to work with in the pan. So to make up for that, throw it in there into the packet, mix it in just so I can get a little bit of moisture in there. There we go. Now for you vegans, this is still a really good dish. I would substitute the beef cubes for some portobellos, shiitakes, pretty much any mushroom, morels. Oh my goodness, it's so good with this. Everything else pretty much stays the same. There's nothing else that's a meat product in here. Well, we're ready for a little bit of hot sauce. Again, I like doing it at this stage because these types of flavors that we're adding in, that type of moisture is going to get sucked in by the potatoes, by the meat, and they're all just going to blend in into a little happy family that's going to be really good to you later on. I know that I showed you before that I like to keep my rice in this type of container, but sometimes just to save space when I have a lot of room, when I don't have a lot of room in the refrigerator, not that it's a problem now, do the same thing that I do with my onions. I'll put them in these Ziploc baggies, and I'll put enough in each baggie for one meal, so I don't have to worry about portion sizes. Alright, that's coming along nicely. Right around this point, I'll go ahead and add the tomato sauce. I don't measure stuff, guys, when I'm cooking. For the most part, I eyeball everything. I'm pretty used to these recipes, so I don't really see a big need for me to have to measure everything out exactly. I've done them enough times that they come out pretty much the same every time that I make them, and that's delicious. Okay, right around now, I like to add a bit of fresh ground black pepper. Now most of that tomato sauce is kind of cooked down and dehydrated itself, but that's fine because it's just going to intensify the flavor when we dilute it a little bit later on with the water. Now, this isn't something that a lot of people do, but I'll just put a splash of adobo in there just to kick up the flavor just a little bit. Then we'll add in the water. How much water you add is really up to you. Basically, we're just making a little bit of a sauce with that, so that it's not a dry meal. We mix it in with the rice. All these flavors are going to mix in really nicely with the rice and just give it that flavor in every bite that you take. Of the fork there, so we're not losing any of that flavor. Really? I like to do my cooking in the morning early. One, so I can start the day off with a decent meal. I don't eat a lot of breakfast foods. One, because I don't have any, but two, I don't know, I like a more hearty meal in the morning. Sometimes I'll make cream beef when I have some ground beef, and I'll eat that with potatoes. I'll make some hash browns, or I'll eat it with rice. I eat a lot of rice. I'm Puerto Rican, so I eat a lot of rice. Plus it's cheap, it's easy to make. All you need is water, oil, and salt, plus a heat source in a pan, and you pretty much got rice. I've run into people that have asked me, well, how do you make rice? What kind of a rice cooker do you use? Heat, pot, water, salt, and oil. I mean, that's all you really need. It's not really complicated. Alright, that's coming along nicely. Now this is pardon me, this is where I'll reduce the heat and let everybody get all happy together. Basically, I want to cook this until the sauce thickens up just a little bit by reducing itself and the potatoes get soft. Once the potatoes are soft, it's just a judgment call on how much longer you want to cook it, whether you want to cook it until the sauce gets a lot thicker. You can always add a little bit of flour if you want a thicker sauce, but you want more sauce. Once the potatoes are soft, that's up to you. I know there are people that'll build up the roux itself before they actually start adding the rest of the ingredients. You know, there is really no right way to do it. It's all what your taste is and what you like. Alright, so we'll let that cook. We'll come back. Scene in all those cooking shows where they show them tasting the sauce, so we'll do the same here. Oh yeah, it doesn't need anything. It just needs time for them potatoes to soften up. Okay, so we got what I did was I moved the meat over into the grill portion in the pan itself. Got a little bit of oil in the pan so our rice doesn't stick. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just heat up that rice. Remember, this has been sitting in the refrigerator. These little toasted parts, it's not burnt. And I'm not trying to make an excuse like, oh, it's Cajun, it's blackened. Nah. That's pegao. And that's particularly delicious. It's nice and crunchy. If you're Hispanic, then you know what I'm talking about. At least if you're a Puerto Rican or Dominican, Cuban, you know what pegao is. Pegao literally translates into stuck. And that's what this is. It's just a rice that's been stuck to the bottom. It gets nice and crisp and crunchy. As long as you've seasoned your rice with correctly with the right amount of salt, and you don't use too much oil, it's gonna have a really good flavor. And when mixed in with when you eat that with anything that has some sauce, like some red beans or the beef that we're making now, oh my God, I don't even know what to tell you. And again, we're just heating it up. Whoop. Cross-contamination there between those, but I mix everything up in the end anyway, so I really don't care. Now, that's nice and hot. We will take our plate and we'll dish up our rice. Since this is one serving, just go ahead and dump it in there. Now, it's up to you. Only because I'm doing the video, I'll make just a separation here as I take the beef and place it in the plate. Some more of those potatoes in here, and that's it. Ow, sorry about that. Burnt myself on the pan. That's it. That's gonna be brunch for me. All right, guys, I'm gonna start cleaning all this stuff up. I'll see you a little bit later on.